I want to put a question to each of the panelists, not about what they've said in the past, but what they now believe. I'd like to ask each individual member of the panel the following three questions. Are there...
Point of order. I have a point of order. I have a point of order. To be honest, I think we're really going on a tangent here. And to be honest, I'm not here to be interrogated by Peter Tatchell, and I don't think that it matters. By the way, even if today each and every one of us concurs with you, the fact of the matter is, outside there, nothing's going to change. Tomorrow's Sun and the Daily Mail, which Peter Oborne writes for, is going to say the very same sensationalist, demonizing things about Islam and Muslims. That is the problem. And therefore, to be perfectly honest, I reject this structure of now Peter Tatchell taking the chair and asking each one questions. I don't think that's proper.
This is supposed to be a dialogue.
Yeah, but I think you can't... Hang on, we've got a large audience here.
I could just ask... And I want to ask each of the panellists a question, which you can answer...
You can interrogate the panel. We have an audience here. You're a member of the panel. I think that you are making demands which are unfair.
This is supposed to be a free and open debate.
Yes, indeed
Therefore, the panel should be able to ask questions of each other just as much as the audience.
You're asking three questions, Peter. You're a very distinguished man. You're one of the greatest.
There are three related questions. Let me ask the question.
I have a question.
I'm sorry.
From the audience. Excuse me, Peter. We have a question. No, I'm sorry. I'm not.
I was invited here on the...
No, you're not going to run this panel. I'm running this panel, Mr. Tatchell. Good. I'm running this panel, and I'm not all...
Freedom of speech.
This is nothing to do with freedom of speech at all. Now, can you...
I'm sorry.
This is nothing to...
Debate.
There's a question from you. Zamir Yusmani has a question for Peter.
And
You're not going to interrogate each member of the panel. That's the end to it.
They have a right not to answer the question. I have a right
no, you're not. I'm not going to have it. You're not going to interrogate.
This is not a free and open debate.
No.
This is a censored debate.
It's nothing to do with censorship at all. You're trying to take over the panel.
I'm not trying to take over.
That is, you're being extremely... It's nothing to do with censorship at all. You're invited along. I've given you lots of time. I'm sorry, I'm not...
I was invited
We have a question. Can you shut up now, please?
I'm not going to shut up.
Yeah?
I'm not going to shut up.
Well, I mean...
I am not going to shut up.
Crikey.
And the question to the panel is this.
No, Zamir Usman...
You don't have to answer, but are there any circumstances in which you would support Sharia law? Are there any circumstances in which you would support Sharia law punishments, such as execution for blasphemy, apostasy, women who have sex outside of marriage, and homosexuality? And are there any circumstances in which you would support Sharia punishments such as stoning and amputation?
The fact of the matter is, Peter, is that whether any one of us said yes, we support, or no, we don't support, will change absolutely nothing. And by the way, it'll change nothing in your own mind and your perceptions and your prejudices against Islam and Muslims. That is the problem. That's the real problem.
That's not true. If any of you said we do not support Sharia punishments like execution, I would applaud you.
It would be absolutely naive of you or naive of anyone to regard anything that Hamza says or Muhammad Amin or Fayyaz or myself or Sarah as being representative of entire Islam. That is extremely naive. And the fact that you think that by posing these three questions and getting a one-worded answer, without delving into the context, I'll tell you what, I absolutely support Sharia, but you know what? The Sharia that I understand and I've studied, not yours, that you've gotten from the Sun and the Daily Mail. I absolutely support Sharia, because your concept of Sharia has nothing to do with true Sharia. That is what I would say, but this is not this kind of discussion. I would love, once again, and invite you to have a couple of hours of coffee with me. And let's talk about Sharia. Let's talk about everything that you want to ask him. And I'm pretty sure that everyone here would say absolutely the same. That is how debate happens, Peter. Not in front of an audience which you want to sway one way or another with one-worded answers. Yet you're here trying to badger us for one-worded answers on issues that people go for years and years and years to study and to get degrees on and the such. And from that, you want to make a judgment on whether Islam is good or not, or whether Muslims are good or not.
What we have to understand is, even from a practical context, Peter, if you were my neighbour and you didn't have milk, I'll give you milk. If you had a heart attack, I'll be the first to give you CPR. If someone tried to attack your home, I would sacrifice my own life to protect you. That's what Islam teaches me. And that's what you have to understand the context of a Muslim. Even if you were to say yes or no to your questions, the point is, it's irrelevant from the practical context that we're living as British citizens. You're my fellow citizen. And at the end of the day, if you needed milk, CPR, or your adopted kids to be taken care of, I would be the one to do that. And that's why you shouldn't... Because that's what you have to understand. These kind of questions are almost demonizing. They have those kind of undertones. But I'm telling you, Peter, move in next door. But I just want to make one point. The point is, I agree with Fiaz. He says it as well with I like the way he speaks as well. It's not crazy like me. Right? So Fiaz basically made a beautiful point. Islam is the solution. And that's why I want to bring it back to the topic, Peter Oban, if possible. What we've done in Britain...
What the topic was.
Yeah. Well, what we've done in Britain, we have basically said that the solution to extremism is going to be outside of the mainstream Muslim community. But if you study Islamic history, you would see that the solution to extremism from an Islamic context has always been the classical orthodox scholars. And this is why, when you look at the 7/7 bombers, and you look at what happened in Woolwich, all of these atrocities, none of them had an orthodox educational pathway. None of them had a nuanced orthodox educational pathway. They adopted ideas from the internet or from so-and-so. And that's why it's very important for us to bring it back to this discussion. Islam has a concept of ghulu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Prophet said, not to engage in ghulu, which is a form of extremism, of excessiveness. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, the 14th century theologian, said this is going between the extremes. Stay on the middle path. The Quran, in the largest chapter, Surah Baqarah, on the 143rd verse, says to be on the just middle pathway. So the point here is, when you look at these values and you see the classical orthodox scholars, they have always been the kind of mechanisms to prevent tyranny and extremism. But what this government is doing, they're basically getting other people outside of the mainstream Muslim community and saying they're the ones who's going to define what Islam is. And that's the problem. You're going to alienate, you're going to create a spiritual vacuum. And I'm telling you, and God forbid, if this happens, you're going to create far more extremism. We need to create more civil space for orthodox Islamic scholars that have prevented extremism for centuries, and our history is a curriculum vitae for this.